What does it mean to assume or reject a lease? Have you ever wondered what happens to your lease when you file for bankruptcy? This is a common question, especially in Chapter 7 bankruptcy cases. Let's break down the concepts of assuming and rejecting a lease in simple terms. When someone files for bankruptcy, they often have ongoing agreements known as executory contracts. Leases fall into this category. This means both the tenant and the landlord still have responsibilities to each other. In bankruptcy, the debtor has two main choices: assume the lease or reject it. Assuming a lease means the debtor decides to continue with the lease agreement. This can be a smart move if the lease has favorable terms, like low rent or a prime location. To assume a lease, the debtor must first fix any defaults. This means catching up on overdue rent or fees. They also need to show that they can keep up with future payments. This process is outlined in Section 365 of the United States Bankruptcy Code. In Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the trustee usually makes the decision to assume or reject leases within 60 days of the bankruptcy filing. If the lease is assumed, the debtor must keep making payments and follow the lease terms. In contrast, Chapter 11 bankruptcy allows more flexibility, letting the debtor assume leases any time before the court approves their reorganization plan. On the other hand, rejecting a lease means the debtor is choosing to end the lease agreement and return the property to the landlord. This option is often taken if the lease is not beneficial or if the debtor cannot afford the payments. Rejection typically requires court approval and can be backdated to the bankruptcy filing date. In Chapter 7, if a lease is not assumed within the 60-day window, it is automatically considered rejected. In Chapter 11, the debtor can reject a lease at any point before the plan is confirmed, but landlords may seek court intervention to push for a decision. For individuals filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, rejecting a lease can relieve them from financial obligations they can no longer meet. For example, if someone is leasing a car that they can no longer afford, rejecting the lease allows them to return the vehicle and avoid further payments. In commercial situations, landlords may prefer a lease rejection if they can find new tenants willing to pay higher rents. However, they must navigate the legal process carefully to ensure they receive any owed rent and minimize financial losses. When filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy forms, Schedule G is the section where all executory contracts and unexpired leases are listed. This is important because it informs the court and creditors about the debtor's ongoing obligations. Understanding whether a lease will be assumed or rejected helps both parties plan and manage their financial expectations during the bankruptcy process.